Boomer coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are on the free Odyssey app. Good Tuesday morning, getting close to Thanksgiving. People heading home, people traveling. That's all the news talks about. Oh, there's people traveling now. Of course, it's Thanksgiving. They travel every year. And we have some sports news yesterday, man. You had the Jets hiring this 33rd team with Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman, and they helped out the Commanders, among some others, last year to get Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and some of the other coaches in to the Commanders, and they've had some success this year. You didn't get a Daniel Jones landing spot yet. You had a nice Knicks win. You had some Rangers news in there. I know we will be getting to, and a Monday night football game last night with some major AFC playoff implications and a Lamar Jackson performance that essentially might solidify another MVP for this man. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I mean, don't forget about Josh Allen. Don't forget about Saquon Barkley.
I'm not forgetting about him.
There's plenty of football left to be played. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, Lamar was great last night. But, again, it's that two-headed monster. When you have Derrick Henry and you have a gambling head coach that is going for it on 4th and 1 on a 16-yard line. It's awesome. I mean, that's the way football should be played, and that's Harbaugh brother football.
What did you think that play call was going to be? I wanted to ask you that. Like, when they were going for it, because I just thought you're giving the ball to Derrick Henry, right? Like,
right, exactly.
That's what I thought was going to happen. Obviously, they did not do that with a direct snap to Mark Andrews? Direct snap to Mark Andrews, and I'm like, whoa.
So when John Harbaugh runs the direct snap or the wildcat to somebody, it works. He's a genius.
Right.
When Brian Daboll does it or somebody else does it, and they try to do the same thing and it doesn't work, they're idiots. I mean, it's just it's about players. You got to have players. You got to have good players. And, it's
got to have a good offensive line.
Well,
right?
yeah, well, of course, yeah. But when you listen to the coaches after the game, especially in this game, because both of these coaches, obviously, the brothers, and they both have had major success everywhere they've gone. And, of course, John has lasted so long in Baltimore. But, it is always about the players. The players are the ones. If you have top-end players, you're going to have a top-end coach. That's just the way it is. I mean, the coach can get so much out of a player, but you got to make sure that you're drafting right, you're bringing in the right free agents. And then when you have players like Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson, then you could build around those players and you're going to have successful teams. I mean, that's basically the ingredient. And, quite frankly, it's one of the reasons why the Jets and the Giants have, stunk so long is because they can't get that ingredient. They can't get that stability. They can't get that leadership by the quarterback situation, whether it be because of injury or ineffectiveness or just picking the wrong people to try to lead the teams. So, it's interesting that Mike Tannenbaum's involved in this whole thing with the Jets now, because that would mean, I would think, that Rex Ryan's out.
Yeah, I mean, some people thought that it means that he's back in, but I thought the same thing you did. I mean, and plus the whole Rex Ryan thing, it just doesn't seem like it's gaining any real traction. Like, he's talking about it every chance he gets, but it doesn't feel like anybody is really believing him. And I don't think that Woody Johnson wants to go back into the past there. Now Eric Mangini is talking publicly about this. It's almost like this job is so bad in the eyes of people that they would think the Jets would, that the people covering the league and others would think the Jets would actually go back to two coaches they fired in the past to come back again to take over years and years and years later. We're not talking about like a couple of years, we made a mistake, whatever. No, we're talking years and years later. That's how bad this job is perceived. I think both of those guys would be a bad idea, and we know the names we have thrown out and the guys that we like, but this is like nuts. Like this job search already in the first couple of weeks is completely bizarre. And I'm really curious to see some other, twists and turns that come up.
I would just say this 33rd team thing is a good idea by the Jets, I think. Let somebody else, a different set of eyes. And somebody like Mike Tannenbaum obviously has inner knowledge of what is going on here. So I would like to think that, his experiences here with Woody Johnson and the Jets hopefully allow him to bring a perspective to the potential individuals that are going to end up running the team. And hopefully they're going to be strong personalities, because they're going to have to be. And they're going to have to, they're going to have to come in here and change the way things are done. And they're going to have to change whatever, Rob Saleh and Joe Douglas tried to build up. I mean, they do have some good players here, but there's going to have to be a lot of changes. And I would also say, depending on who the coach is, will determine as to whether or not Aaron Rodgers stays here. I don't think that decision has been made. I think a lot has been made of that potential decision, but I don't think that decision has been made yet, depending on how Aaron finishes out the season, assuming he stays healthy and he's able to finish out the season and they look like they have something going on. Because every coach wants a quarterback that he can win with. Now, I don't know if they're going to feel that way, depending on who that coach is and general manager is, with Aaron Rodgers hanging around. But, the salary cap implications are enormous, and maybe the Jets do decide to do what the Denver Broncos did. Just cut bait and eat it and just try to find that young quarterback to build around, and then in the second year of that young quarterback's tenure, then they could start spending some money again on free agency.
Yeah, so we found out yesterday that Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Jeff Ulbrich said that he's going to play this week. He's healthier than he's been because he had the bye week, and some of the things about him going on IR or being released are not going to come to fruition right now. I mean, cutting bait, I think, would happen maybe at the end of the season, or maybe things get so bad in the next couple of weeks, injury-wise or whatever, that he's not going to play. I was actually surprised to hear that yesterday. I thought it was going to be some sort of benching or IR or something, and we wouldn't see Aaron Rodgers play again. But lucky for us, we get to see him out there again. Awesome. Not that, watching Tyrod Taylor would have been something that was all that exciting, but, it's the fact that he, with all this rubble around him, no more Joe Douglas, no more Rob Saleh, is going to go out there with a GM search and a coach search going on and finish out this season is just hilarious. It's like, the last man standing who basically tore this thing apart.
I'm just, I know what he's going through because I went through it for 3 effing years with the Jets.
Yeah.
Change. And when you come here late in your career, you're thinking, okay, I got something here. I got a good team. We're going to be stable. Everything's going to be good. And there was a different owner, of course, with Leon Hess as opposed to Woody Johnson. But it was 3 years of just total turmoil and upheaval. And there is just no way you're going to be successful under those conditions. Now, I think what he tried with Rob Saleh, because they gave him 4 years, and I guess they gave Joe Douglas 5.5 years. They tried. They tried to stay stable. They tried to build it through a little bit of the draft and then a couple of acquisitions via trades and free agents. And unfortunately, it just did not work. And then when you watch these teams last night, Baltimore and L.A., what you see 2 young quarterbacks or relatively young quarterbacks who are experienced, who can make the plays, who can run with the football, and who can add to an offense unconventionally that, unfortunately Aaron Rodgers at the age of 40 cannot do.
Yeah, so this 33rd team actually, because they in addition to doing consulting, they also do some newsworthy things, put out opinions. They have their website. People subscribe to see what they say about things.
Mike Tannenbaum wants to make some money, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
who does?
For him, yeah.
So they, before they got hired, put out a list of potential GM candidates.
Oh, here we go.
For the Jets. So maybe it's a little insight there. So the 2 names with Tannenbaum ties, Rich Cimini said from this article, or Dawn Aponte, former NFL executive, and Brian Gain, who was the Bills' assistant GM. Let's, bring in another Bills' assistant GM here to New York. And then also they listed potential external candidates.
Okay,
so
let's talk
here's
about
some
this.
external candidates. Ray Agnew from the Lions. Mike Borgonzi from the Chiefs. Ed Dodds from the Colts. And Jeff Ireland from the Saints. And if you remember Jeff Ireland, he was the man who asked Des Bryant if his mother was a prostitute. Remember that whole thing?
Well,
he was that guy.
if
you're like, where do I remember that name? And I know he's done other things.
Wasn't he doing Miami? Wasn't he like the Miami GM as well?
He was when that happened.
And, I'm sure like Dawn Aponte is somebody who's been in league circles for quite some time since she started with I believe she started with the Jets.
Yeah.
And then was down there with Mike Tannenbaum down in Miami. And then, of course, she was in the league office. So she's highly respected in terms of, regardless of whether it's a male or a female, I don't really care. What I want is somebody that has the ability to handle all of what the Jet job brings. And, that's there's a lot of negativity to it. And there's going to always be, no matter who the eventual GM is going to be, there's always going to be a level of negativity that they're going to have to initially deal with.
Yeah, it sounds like to me.
They're just going to rip apart everything that person has done and then just tell that person how they're going to fail, and then it's going to be up to somebody else after whoever they decide to hire this time.
Yeah, it sounds like to me, outside of Jeff Ireland, who was the last on that list of names, that the Jets are going to go for a first-time general manager. That's what it sounds like, which is the things that we don't want. We don't want that here. We don't want first-time GMs. We don't want first-time head coaches. We want people who have done it before, who have experience, who have gone through the ringer, who might have worked for other owners that have been nuts. Like, that's what you need, is that experience. And that's why we have identified guys like, Rex Ryan to a lesser extent, but John Gruden and Brian Flores.
Mike Vrabel.
And Mike Vrabel, who I don't think will come here. But those guys, chip on the shoulder, command respect the second they walk into the room, have experience, have been fired before, like things like that, have gone through it.
Have been a head coach,
yes,
know exactly what
that's
the head coach entails. It's not just coaching a group of men. There's so many other decisions that those coaches make that nobody ever sees. There's a lot that comes across their desk, and they need to be able to be the head coach, the CEO, if you will, of the football team, because they're basically directing everybody in the building. So the GM hopefully will hire the coach, or maybe they'll come as a package deal. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is the GM is about building the roster. That's what they are tasked at doing. They do it through scouts. They do it through free agency. They got people that are scouting all the other 31 teams. They got team scouts, a group of scouts that are looking at college. Then there's another group of scouts that could be looking internationally at who knows, all sorts of types of athletes that do different things, that they may find a diamond in the rough somewhere, and it could be, Australian rules football or something. I mean, there's a group that they have to put together, that they all have to be on the same page, looking for the same type of players. But that head coach is the one who has to deal with everything. How are we traveling? How are we practicing? What's my protocol when it comes to away games versus home games, all of that stuff that comes across their desk. That's why I want somebody who is experienced in having all of that ready to rock and roll.
Well, one of these first-time GMs, though, if they end up bringing up one of those guys that the 33rd team had identified previously to being hired as consultants, one of those first-time GMs have the guts to bring in someone who isn't a first-time head coach, because then all of a sudden you're giving the power to a big personality. So right now, with the information that we have, it sounds like the Jets are going to do it again. They're going to pick
that could be
two poor bastards who have a decent career right now and ruin it. And these guys, and I never heard of some of these guys, like some of the GM candidates and head coach candidates we've heard of, like up-and-coming guys. Well, I don't think they're going to take those jobs. They're not going to take this job.
The reason they're giving you those names is because they are with successful franchises. So did the assistant GM at Kansas City, was he the one that picked Patrick Mahomes?
I don't.
I mean, because basically that's
Mike Borgonzi.
Yeah, but that's their team. Their team is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then you go out and you get Chris Jones. You go out and you get what's his name, Travis Kelce, and you build around them. You bring in Xavier Worthy. These are the types of things that Jawan Taylor. These are the types of things you do when you have your stud quarterback. That's why most of these teams are successful. Look at the Detroit Lions and how it started out with Dan Campbell.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And then we talked about yesterday, the Goff trade people were laughing at, like, oh, man, you trade away, one of the best players in your franchise history. He's got all the records. He goes to the Rams. He wins a Super Bowl, and you're stuck with this mediocre quarterback who now is having an incredible season, took the team to an NFC title game last year, is essentially perfect in a lot of these games. He's like 18 for 18. So, yeah, it did not get off to a good start. People were laughing at him with a kneecap thing.
Right, but who did they draft? They drafted Aiden Hutchinson, who's hurt, unfortunately, but then they drafted Penny Sewell.
Yeah.
Those are offensive and defensive lines, like anchor guys. And then that it takes a while to, get guys like that in your building that are going to be great players. And, Penny Sewell has turned out to be tremendous. And, that offensive line has been built with the starting left tackle. And once you get that starting left tackle, then you get the center. And then the next thing you know, you get a couple really solid guards, and and away you go with an offensive coordinator who's going to get a job this offseason. It ain't going to be the Jet job.
Yeah, you know what is...
Could you see Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick here?
Absolutely not. No. And I'm looking at this. This guy, Mike Borgonzi, is the perfect guy to come here, the next guy to come here and fail. You want to know why?
Why is that?
Because he's got the resume that just like sticks out. It's great. And he's one of these guys I always say, when you're really smart, you go to the Jets or the Browns, you become an idiot. So this guy, really smart, went to Brown, right?
Hell yeah.
Went to Brown, played football at Brown.
Good.
All Ivy League honors.
My man loves football, man.
He graduated from Brown. He's been working in the Kansas City Chiefs organization. Could you work in a better organization?
No.
I mean, this guy's perfect. The assistant GM, he is ready to take on the job. He is going to come here, and every bit of intelligence in his body is going to get evaporated, or he's going to get his legs cut out underneath him from Woody Johnson, who's going to Nancy Kerrigan him from behind. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So good luck, Mike Borgonzi. This isn't the place for you. If you want to have like a good career, don't come here. I mean, it's hilarious. And if they end up doing this thing again, assistant GM, assistant head coach to come here just gets swallowed up. Like, what is that, The Little Shop of Horrors? Remember that movie?
Yeah,
that plant just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Seymour,
yes.
That's what the Jets are now. The giant version of Seymour. You get near, eat you. That's what it is.
Oh, man.
So that's why you need someone to break the trend. These guys are not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, smart guys turn into, what I want to see is him stand up in front of the media with the machine.
Give us a press conference like Adam Gase did.
Right, with the machine gun questioning that's coming at you.
Yeah, I mean, but
but that's a big part of it. Don't you understand that?
It is a big part of it, but like, this is what I mean. Like, Joe Douglas handled that stuff great. He was awesome at it. Like, he really was. And now he's gone. And he got fired on the practice field when the owner landed a helicopter on it. All right?
If that's true. I mean, if he said to Jeff Holbrook, I think I'm going to get fired today. It was nice working with you.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
And then was like 2 minutes later.
I mean, that's the Jay Glazer story.
Yeah, which I tend to believe.
I believe it too. Jay's he's plugged in, he's locked in. I'm sure he called Joe Douglas and asked Joe Douglas what happened, how did it happen, and Joe said, "Well, I'm standing there in practice next to Jeff Holbrook. In comes the helicopter, and out I go."
Yep. So I mean, if I were Woody Johnson, I'd go right to John Gruden. I'd say, all right, what is the contract that you would like, and let's identify some guys that you would be willing to work with as a general manager. So make sure that you've got a history there, and we're not hiring someone you never worked with before because you're a big personality, and the team of you two guys will be it. But you're the man. You are the man, and you have a scouting department and everything else. So be a GM, but we need you as the guy. And I would pay as much money as humanly possible to do that. That's what I would do. Because if there starts to be a couple other jobs that pop up that are more attractive than the Jets, then there's one thing that could change John Gruden's mind, and that would be money. So outbid for him.
Well, let's think about the jobs that could open up, and would
Some
they be
already open?
Right, yeah. So I'm saying, would they be more attractive and less glaring and less or more? I guess more fixable would be the word I would use. A much better place to go. Like, let's just say Chicago decides to leave. Change their coaches. Yeah. That is going to be the job that everybody's going to want because that kid is doing some special things. He really is. I mean, it doesn't look like it because it's been a little bit choppy this year. They got a new offensive coordinator now. The last 2 games, he's been a lot better. But everybody's going to want a piece of Caleb Williams because they believe that they could win with him.
Been a bad year for the Cowboys, but that job's more attractive because you're going to get presumably a healthy Dak Prescott.
Jaguars?
Well, it should be. I mean, they're either going to have Trevor Lawrence back, who's not a terrible quarterback, hasn't lived up to what everybody expected, or the number 1 overall pick where they get a chance to reset.
I got to see, how Jim Harbaugh went to the Chargers and inherited Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert was doing a lot and was asked to do a lot, and even though they lost last night. He's not being asked to do nearly as much as he was.
Right.
And I think Jim Harbaugh, a former quarterback himself and nothing but a winning head coach, knows exactly how to, I don't want to say protect his quarterback, but put his quarterback in really good situations. And, when the game's on the line, then we'll unleash you when we have to. But we have to run the ball. We have to play defense. We have to be smart special teams-wise. and that's going to bring the best out in Justin Herbert, and I do believe that. I do believe that that's the case for the Chargers. That could be the case for the Jaguars.
All right. Let's get to a break. We'll get CeeLo in here. He's got a jam-packed sports update, and we continue to roll in this Tuesday morning on The Fan. It is Boomer and Gio, also on CBS Sports Network. All right.